Now we move on to a presentation by the CEO of the Broadband Forum, Mr. Robin Mersh.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mark, and the board of OMA for the invite. We're very happy to be part of this celebration because I think it's kind of a celebration of the way of working of OMA, which is very, very similar to the way that the Broadband Forum itself was really conceived and how we work. It's a very sort of similar kind of organisation. So it's really, I think, a bit of a sort of celebration of this path in the industry, which I think, as Mr. Kim was saying, is really all about driving interoperability. So I wanted to sort of give you maybe just a couple of slides because, you know, you're very much obviously from the wireless side of the industry. You know, I'm very much wireline. So I wanted to give you maybe just a little bit of feedback on you know, who we are, just so you can kind of place us. And then I have a couple of slides that really just talk about the areas that I think are very interesting from the point of view of both organisations and really how we could actually collaborate a lot more. Because maybe sort of 10 years ago, the Broadband Forum was already in existence, but we really didn't have any kind of relationship at all. And you can sort of say maybe until only a few years ago, the ideas around convergence and interworking between wireless and wireline were still very much, you could kind of argue, were kind of pipe dreams. You know, we weren't anywhere near it. Now that has changed, and partly through some of the collaboration now that we're thinking about with the OMA. So this is our mission statement. And you can sort of see it's all very, you know, from our point of view, it's very wireline orientated. We almost sort of see ourselves, you know, I've said this before in presentations, we almost see ourselves as being like the champions of wireline in that, you know, we are all about getting best practices for broadband wireline deployments, about encouraging interoperability, about putting in, you know, test plans that underpin interoperability, about designing, you know, management tools that aid those deployments. And as wireless and wireline were coming together, it was that idea of kind of championing the sort of side of the house, which is wireline. But that doesn't mean, and I don't mean that in terms of being combative, not at all. It was actually absolutely about being cooperative, and we've actually had some discussions over the last few years about taking that forward. So, and you'll sort of see the last line of our mission statement is kind of a grand statement, isn't it? Redefining broadband. This was a very conscious decision. We had a lot of debate about exactly whether we should say that or not. And we came to the conclusion that really, you know, if you accept the fact that broadband is changing, then you have to be absolutely central to that change. You know, standards they shouldn't be just following along passively. It should be a much more active conversation. And that would include, obviously, what's happening within convergence and interworking between wireless and wireline. So who we are exactly is we're a consortium like yourselves, 200 members, you know, similar kind of places that your membership comes from. So obviously service providers and the hardware vendors, a lot of chipset companies though as well. Consultancies, test labs. We also have some regulators involved as well. Basically, the key stakeholders within the wireline broadband industry. So we have some overlap with your membership, not sort of completely. So there's an interesting, I think, synergy that we could have between the two organisations. We've been around since '94, so originally as the ADSL Forum. You know, that name didn't serve us too well for too long, really, because ADSL obviously morphed into other DSL technologies, so we became the DSL Forum and now the Broadband Forum. So, and interestingly enough, last month we had our first cable company join, which we thought was a really significant change. So I think, you know, now we can really say we really are the Broadband Forum because we even have a lot of wireless carriers as well that are members. So I think, you know, with that kind of thing happening, I think the chances of even more collaboration is really high. So we're all about engineering technology solutions. Again, I think this is kind of pretty obvious sort of stuff, really, because I think it's very similar to what you do. You just do it, you're very much doing it in the wireless space. The difference may be being that we're heavily involved in architecture. So we have maybe a little bit of a sisterly relationship with 3GPP, for that reason. Okay, so our membership, and I always like to sort of show this, although it's kind of changed a bit recently. Our work is driven by requirements. So we're very real world. We do not just work on solutions just for the sake of it. We're always driven by case studies, and I think again that's very similar to you. So don't want to sort of teach you to suck eggs here. Okay, this is our scope of work. This is such a busy slide. We're actually working on how do we change this, because our scope of work is very wide. We do need to explain it to people, but I want to kind of focus on one particular area, which I think is the area we can really collaborate on even more effectively. So we have 6 different working groups. One of them is Broadband Home, which largely works on device management, although that's not completely true, but mostly they work on device management. We developed TR69, which I'm sure a lot of you are well aware of, but obviously the counterpart in the wireline world to OMA DM. And you'll notice my first sort of like bullet point there, an industry-leading device management solution. The other leading device management solution is your one. So that's very specifically sort of put in there. I think it is true to say that both are the leading device management solutions in broadband. We've evolved this family of specifications. So TR69 is like shorthand for the protocol. So that's the protocol itself. There's lots of added-on pieces. There's different data models, and we've built this in a very modular kind of approach. Again, I'll sort of say very similar to you, and this is why I was very happy to accept this invitation, because I think we have got to carry on pushing down this line of how do we collaborate, how do we make life easier for service providers. That's really what the bottom line sort of has to be. We have made good attempts in sort of doing this in terms of working with 3GPP and ATIS and ETSI and ITUT. The TR69 itself was standardised by ETSI in 2010, so now it has its own European standard identification. It is currently referenced within ETSI M2M, but again, exactly as OMA DM is. We're both referenced in, I think, a fairly similar kind of way. And we've had lots of ongoing work with ETSI M2M on how we develop that work further. Obviously, now there's a bit of an open issue in that 1M2M is just about to be formed, but I hope to have a lot more discussion with OMA leadership on how we're going to take that forward, and also with ETSI as well. This next bullet we're very proud of, because this is the first time we have been able to say that we know what the number is in terms of deployed TR69 devices. Believe it or not, we could not find this number for years. I mean, TR69 has been around since 2004. We have just guessed how many deployed devices there are. But this year we undertook a study. We think we got to the bottom of it at last. And at the end of 2011, there were 150 million devices connected, mostly as residential gateways, so fairly simple kind of internet services. But that has been changing, and we're starting to see higher numbers of set-top boxes, of VoIP devices, and the starts of M2M devices as well. So we expect to see this number jump quite dramatically. I mean, it's kind of funny though, because when I look at this with your numbers, obviously you totally dwarf us. But of course, there are millions more cellular devices out there. But I think the one thing that I think we probably all could agree upon though is that these two deployed protocols are probably here to stay. And I'm not going to sort of say I can do crystal ball gazing and say how long and exactly on what form they'll stay in place. But I think certainly for the foreseeable future, you can't really see any change being made. What's probably more important is how do we service our customers better. And that's the thing I think we really should probably talk about. So as I said, with the Broadband Home Group, they're focused on deploying home network devices. I should also mention including femto access points. So we developed the very first release of femto access management was in cooperation with 3GPP and the Small Cells Forum. So we were very pleased about doing that. It's a scalable solution. Security is inbuilt. We're now moving from maybe how TR69 first started was all about maintaining devices and really more of a question of reducing cost. Now it's much more about enabling new services and enabling new revenues. And I get the feeling that some of that is actually, again, quite similar to DM. So again, I think some good sort of like synergies. We've been developing a conformance test plan. We're going to move to much more active ways of enabling interoperability. And as I said in the last slide, there's this growing list of liaison relationships. And I think sort of like now, it's funny, the first time I came to an OMA meeting was in Boston, which I think was, I'm trying to remember what year it was. 2009, okay. So, and we've made, various attempts, to work together. But I think we're getting to the point now where there's really good practical reasons why we should. There are business reasons for why we should be working together. And I really hope that we take that to the next step. Regardless of what sort of happens, though, I would sort of say, absolutely congratulations on 10 years. I think it's great that the industry has organisations like ours, and long may you thrive. Thank you.